everyone, I am here today to review The Witchfinder's Sister by Beth Underdown. Now first of all, I just want to quickly say before we get stuck into this review, I film on my phone and I can't see what angle you've possibly got right now, but it's possible that I look naked. So I'm not, I assure you, I have got a dress on, it's just a strapless one. So there we go. So I feel a little bit awkward reviewing this book in a way because I didn't actually finish it, which was quite a new thing for me. I really struggled to DNF books, but this book, oh my goodness. So I gave this book 1 star, and the reason why I'm still doing a review is because I received a copy from the publisher via NetGalley, and I really feel like I'm obliged to review this book. So I'm just going to be honest about it. I skim read from, how far? I read it properly until 60%, and then I started skim reading, and then it was at 75% that I gave up. So, you know, I made it a good 3/4 of the way through and almost over halfway before I even started skimming. So I've got a good idea of how the book was feeling up to that point, and so I feel like this can still be quite an honest review and possibly helpful to some of you. So this book is based on a sort of historical event in England with someone called Matthew Hopkins, who actually went around sort of getting people mentioned as witches and like getting them killed basically. He is basically responsible for a lot of deaths. And this was something that I actually did some reading around about before I even requested the book. I was like, this sounds potentially quite interesting, and I wanted to know the history behind it because I didn't really know anything about it before then reading the book. So I just, you know, had some background knowledge. So I did a lot of reading around about it, and I actually found the reading around it really interesting, and I learned an awful lot, and I was quite thankful that I'd stumbled across this book to even do this reading around. And I thought, yeah, I'm definitely going to really love this book. So yeah, I requested it. I think it's a bad sign when the reading around you do is more interesting than the actual book itself. The book, for a fiction book, it felt incredibly dry at times. I was sat there thinking, I feel like a history textbook would be more interesting than this. And that's sort of my takeaway from this, if you like. It's very dry, it's very slow paced. And the biggest problem with this is that it isn't always that way. I mean, some of it I actually really enjoyed, and so I was debating 2 stars just because occasionally I found myself really enjoying what was going on, but then I was like, I can't give a book 2 stars if I haven't finished it. So 1 star, I'm afraid. So as I said, this is a historical fiction novel that, while centred around Matthew Hopkins, is actually more following his sister, who isn't necessarily real. I don't know whether there's actually any evidence as to whether he had a sister or not, but in the story we follow this fictional sister. And as I said, he was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of women, and this is in the 17th century in England. I actually read some early reviews before reading this book as well, and I noticed that they were quite mixed, though for the most part there was more glowing reviews than not. And so I didn't really necessarily worry about that. I was like, okay, most people are thinking that this is great. A couple of people aren't, but there's always a couple of people in there. So most people are thinking this is fantastic. I'm going to really love this book. So this really spurred me on into a really positive thinking. So I actually really enjoyed the first 25 to 30%. Even though, as I said, at times even then it was a little bit slow paced, but I enjoyed learning about his sister. I enjoyed the setting. I enjoyed the atmosphere. The atmosphere is fantastic at times. I really felt quite creeped out just because you could tell that there was something not quite right with Matthew from very early on. You were like, there's just something about him. You'd not feel comfortable around him. And then from there it all started going a bit slow really, and that's where my issues started arising. Now it's definitely no fault of the author in terms of her actual writing, because the writing was amazing. It was quality writing, beautiful at times. You could tell that the author can really write. So the issue lay more with just the pacing. Maybe it just wasn't the book that I thought it was going to be, and yeah, I just didn't enjoy it. I felt like the atmosphere that was there in the beginning of the book was just slowly slipping away, and considering it was the atmosphere that I sort of admired most at the time, I was like, oh, where's this going? I almost feel like the author just couldn't hold the atmosphere, hold the suspense that was occasionally building up, hold the storyline. I just felt like we had to just keep drifting off into what almost felt like a sort of classic in terms of difficult to read and difficult to actually care about. As I said, I am someone who really struggles to DNF a book, so I feel like despite this review being just my first 60% and then me skim reading to 75%, I feel like this really sort of emphasises how little I enjoyed this book, because I don't DNF books. It's not something I do. Even then, I thought about it for a long time. I should probably have DNF'd a lot earlier than what I did, but I thought about it for a long time, and in the end I was like, you know what? This is putting me in the worst reading slump ever. If I'm not enjoying it, why am I still trying to read it? There are so many great books out there, and so this is my takeaway from it. And it was almost really refreshing to actually DNF this book. So while I didn't enjoy it, it taught me how to move on, because I can be one of those people that will just plod through and plod through and plod through, and I don't enjoy the book and end up in a massive reading slump for about 6 months, and I don't want to be like that anymore. And so this book has helped me to get past that. Due to my experience, I'm obviously not going to recommend this book to anyone. I'd say if you are interested in perhaps the idea around it, then go and do your own reading history. Just Google Matthew Hopkins and have a nice little reading time. I really wouldn't recommend this book to you personally. And I wouldn't even say that it's because it's a slow historical fiction. I've read slow historical fictions in the past. There's something about me in this book that did not click. So thank you so much for watching this review. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe by clicking on that image of me just there so you can see new videos from me. Hopefully this is me properly back now. I'm out of my reading slump. I am well set up here to film several videos in a row. So yeah, thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye bye!